I suck at Jiu-Jitsu? How do I suck less at Jiu-Jitsu?
I guess to suck less.
The diabolical leader of the Headlock Squad.
Hey everybody, this is American Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt, Josh McKinney, the host of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show, and today we are going to be talking about, we figured last week we talked about stuff that you aren't allowed to talk about, and people were excited. Way more than I expected. People were excited, so I figured let's keep talking about stuff that you're not allowed to talk about. Stuff that is bad words in the jiu-jitsu space, especially in the competition space. But there is, nothing worse in jiu-jitsu that someone could call you other than a staller, right? That's the worst thing that someone could call you. But the truth is, at a high level, people don't really think of it that way. And this is because understanding stalling is actually just part of understanding strategy in a jiu-jitsu match. So if we don't understand that stalling is just part of the game, it is just part of the strategy that not only we're going to have to play, but also we're going to have to deal with, we're going to end up losing a ton of competitions with this excuse where we go, well, at least I didn't get submitted. As if winning isn't winning and losing isn't losing. And I think back to the philosopher Dominic Toretto once said, ask any racer, any real racer. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning. Family. It's all about family. But sorry, I got off there. But the idea is this. If you're competing, you're trying to win. And you have to understand that the person that you are competing against is trying to win also. They're going to take the rules of the game and they're going to try to play them in the best of their ability to win the match. And that is their job. And you should do the same thing. If you have a moral obligation to whomever that you feel the need that you need to submit everybody, well, that's fine. But you have to understand that stalling is part of the game. And if you start a match standing and you're going to submit everybody, but your whole game plan is you have to pull guard and you go get taken down, well, guess what? Your chances of submitting people off your back go way, way down, because why would the guy pass your guard? Why would the guy take any risk on top? You let him score so early. It's a game. Why would you let him score so early? And so, and you have to understand this. Any game that has a time limit, some type of time constraint on it, when the person winning starts winning, they start to think about the time constraint, as they should. It's just how it goes. So before we solve, and let me just say this. This is going to seem like, I've turned heel or something. And so that's why we're talking about the evil art of stalling, the secret art of stalling. Don't tell anybody about this one, guys. But don't share this episode. Share last week. Don't share this week. This is just between you and I. But what we want to look at today is just if you could understand strategy. Yes, I'm pushing thoughts on stalling, but I promise this is going to give you a general idea of how to strategize a jiu-jitsu match in a way that you've never thought of before. And so you're not going to need to buy any product or anything like that. The end of this episode, you will have knowledge that you'll go, I can tweak my training regimen. I can tweak the way I'm thinking about training and get better results in competition, whether you want to utilize the dark art of stalling or you want to go, I don't think it's right. I think Josh is morally wrong in this. He's just like, I like Josh. He's always helpful, but he's morally wrong. Well, if that is the case, you still need to learn to practice against it. And we're going to dig into how to do that later on in this episode. And so before we talk stalling, or as our friends in England call it stalling, we will first talk strategy. I'm sorry, I even thought about not saying that joke as it was coming out of my mouth. Strategy is the prioritization of limited resources against unlimited options. So what that means is if you were playing a video game, and I don't know what the video game is, some type of RPG, you're in an open world, you're going to do all kinds of stuff. You will have some type of limited resources in the game, right? You have like a health bar, you have hearts or something like that. You have money, you have coins, something that you can use to buy items to help you. Usually have some type of, I don't know, place you need to go or time constraint or something. There's some other thing that is kind of a limited resource. But also in the game, this is an open world game. There are a million things you can do. You can explore. You can fight other people. It's online. You can just hang out with your friends in this game. You can buy stuff. You can save a friend. You have just an unlimited amount of options. So if there was some way to win in this game, strategy is you deciding what is most important to spend your limited resources on so you can win the game, right? So you're taking your time, your coins, whatever, and you're investing them in the right way in a sense of like, okay, I'm going to, beat this game in the next 12 hours. And so because I'm a gamer and that's what gamers do, they sit in their special gaming chair and have the day completely off and dig into the game super deeply, right? So they have 12 hours to get as far in this game as possible, and that's their limited resource, their first limited resource. And so then it's about, how am I going to spend this time to make the most coins, and then what am I going to do with those coins? Am I going to use those coins on something that lets me progress farther in the game, or lets me make more coins in the long run? Lets me have more health? There's so many ways that you can play the game, but strategy is deciding what way of playing the game gets the result that I want. And so in short, strategy is choosing what to focus on because you can't focus on everything. Strategy is choosing what to focus on because you cannot focus on everything. And so let's think about that in jiu-jitsu terms, okay? And not just be so video game abstract, right? And so in jiu-jitsu terms, in a match specifically, let's say that we have limited resources. Let's say they are energy, right? Sometimes we go in with great cardio, sometimes we don't, but either way, there is an amount of tired that we can get where we stop having access to our jiu-jitsu, where we stop being able to function, right? And, ideally we build a game that prevents that from happening, but we have a limited amount of energy. We also have a limited amount of knowledge. How many moves do you know? How many moves can you hit against good people your belt level and age and weight? I don't know. Well, and then not only that, but the clock is ticking down. So there is a limited amount of attempts that we're even going to get. We'll get into the idea of attempts and exchanges in a little bit. But with that being said, it's like you have these limited resources of energy, knowledge, and time. There is also an unlimited amount of options, right? Think about, we're going to slap bump. Where could this match go? Man, it could go to any submission from any position, from the feet, right? Like, okay, maybe there's a takedown, and now I'm down 2, and you're in my closed guard. Where could this match go? Well, you don't actually have a ton of options. You could open my guard, but for me, I could open my guard. I could attack chokes. I could attack arm locks. I could attack sweeps. If I do those, now you have unlimited options again. You could leave. You can try to pass me all the different ways that you know. You can try to take my back. You can fall back on a leg lock. And there is an unlimited amount of options. And so really, if you think about the opposite, okay, so like that's stressful when you think about competition as there are an unlimited amount of things that could happen. But this is not what I want you to take away. I'm just kind of proving the point. What I want you to take away is that technically all you have to do to win a jiu-jitsu match, if there's points, but technically, I mean, even if there's not points, even if it's submission only, this analogy makes sense. But technically, all you have to do is make one move work one time in a match and then prevent all of your opponent's other moves from working, and you will win that match. So all you have to do is make one move work once in a jiu-jitsu match. One move, work once. So it's a 5-minute match. Make one move work during a 3-second exchange. Your one sweep that you know. You get on top. You absorb a bunch of sweeps. You survive a bunch of submissions. You win the match. You prevented all your opponents. You prevented 4 minutes and 57 seconds of offense, but you successfully did one 3-second exchange of offense, and you win the match. But every time you let your opponent make a move in their favor, most likely that means that you have to make at least one move again in your favor to get back ahead, right? They sweep you back. Well, we got to score again, right? And the match changes. Well, let's go back and forth. Let's do it. Well, I'll sweep you back. And now maybe I'll pass your guard. Well, I'm not good at holding side control. You get back to guard. You sweep me back. Now you're on top. Now you're passing my guard. I get back to my guard. Now here is where the problem lies. You're only good at 3 freaking moves. And you've done them. You've done your best one twice. Do you think you're going to hit that a third time? I don't know. It's going to be hard. You're getting really tired. This guy has gotten 2 reps trying to defend that move, you know, and maybe he's got a little more confidence now in defending it. He's like, well, this is his only move. All I got to do is stop that. And so the idea is like, oh, we're going to go back and forth. We're going to go back and forth. It doesn't make sense to do that, because how many times can you reach into your bag of tricks before they run out? You know, you ask the highest level guys when they're talking about the moves that they hit at black belt, usually they're like, oh yeah, I'm good at like 3 things. I'm good at 5 things. And that's true for the best people in every division, is they just tend to be better than everybody else in like 3 moves, right? Positions that they're going to be in 80% of the time, but then they're also really good at preventing stuff from happening in the other 95% of the match. Because again, it's just about making that move work at the right time once. And this doesn't mean, I'm not saying, and I'm going to give a lot of examples on what this idea, what we're calling stalling, okay? But really, again, this is just part of understanding you are playing a game that has a timer in it, and it's counting down. And if you don't get a submission before that timer, we're going to go to the points. How do I win? Of course, I want to submit everybody. That makes the most sense, to be honest. If you really think in a tournament setting, if I could just have 1-minute matches while everyone else is having 7-minute matches, the longer we go, the deeper we go into the tournament, the more it's going to like compound how much help I'm getting out of me getting submissions. So yes, it would always be better to get submissions. But you've got to think in terms that we have limited resources. There is only a certain amount of time on the clock. We only have a certain amount of knowledge. We only are good at a few moves. I see it happen all the time with competitors. They go in and they rush something. They go in and they're really good at, let's say, a closed guard sweep. And I pick closed guard specifically because it's a little harder to get there than if it was a sweep from one of the open guards, right? But they start a match. They don't really get enough practicing pulling guard, practicing forcing people into their closed guard, and practicing getting their sweep that they're really good at. But they go in, pull guard, try to get to their closed guard. They're almost there. They're fighting it really hard, and they just go, no, I'll just go for the sweep now. Even though in the gym, they never, ever, ever go for it that way. In the gym, they always keep fighting the closed guard, and then they work from there, and then they get the right resistance, and then they hit their sweep. And that is what makes the sweep good. But in the tournament, it just gets so easy because we don't think in competition. We don't have a competition mindset in our training, and it costs us so often against the people who do. Because you have to understand, I'm going to tell something to you or explain something to you that you feel like nobody talks about in a way that nobody feels. But I've competed against a good amount of competitors that obviously understand this at this high of a level or a higher level than I'm about to explain it to you. They understand how to play. You really get to understand this so well competing at adult black belt. I spent 5 years competing at adult black belt, pretty much as I could. And the one thing that 10-minute matches showed me was how to pace a match. I'll give you some examples of pacing matches and kind of how you look at that too in a little bit. But I just want to stay on the thought of the actual match, right? In that thought of how many moves do you have and how much do you get to use them? And so if we tied this into an actual exchange, if you tried to pull close guard, you try to go for your sweep, it's not there because you didn't set it up, right? You didn't force the close guard. You didn't spend time in the close guard working your Kimura first, working your other stuff first. You just went right for the sweep. Well, now your best move has been shown if you missed it. And so now this guy knows, okay, watch the scissor sweep. He's a scissor sweep guy. Just pay attention to that. His coach, he has a good coach. And his coach goes, hey, that's probably the one move he's good at from guard. Watch that. And, he obviously wanted that. He rushed it, though. He missed it. And so maybe it even knocked you over, but you didn't finish the sweep. It's competition. You don't train against people who don't just accept the bottom. You don't train against guys who go, no, I'll do everything I can to save those points and get back on top. Because you don't have the competition mindset in the gym ever. And you shouldn't always have the competition mindset in the gym either. That can cause you to not get good at jiu-jitsu and to just get good at the game. The goal should be to get really good at jiu-jitsu, but also to get good at the game. To also understand, I can take this skill that I have, and if I understand strategy well, I understand that there are unlimited resources, or there are limited resources, and there are unlimited options. What am I going to focus my energy on? What am I going to put my knowledge? What part of the time am I going to go for my best stuff? And so instead of missing those sweeps early where you're kind of showing your hand, why not be comfortable going, hey, I know that I have a few things even that kind of work from close guard that I hit 80% of the time and not 100% of the time. Maybe once I get to close guard, since it's a good stalling position, even though it's on bottom and it is a stalling position, think about what you're doing. You are limiting the top player's options. This is why it's one of the most overpowered guards. If you can get both of somebody's knees on the floor and you can get them in close guard, in a point setting, in a submission-only setting with a decision, you're unstoppable. As long as you don't let them do something ignorant to you, their only option is to really open your closed guard. Yeah, there are a few attacks that guys have, but they are very, very limited and they're very, very risky, right? The only low risk option that that the top player has in closed guard is to open the closed guard. The bottom player can obviously open the closed guard. They have that same option. They can open their own closed guard anytime they want. So then that's in the zero-sum game. That means, okay, that's out. But what other options do they have? Well, they have chokes that are very low risk. They have arm locks that are very low risk. They have back takes that are very low risk. They have sweeps that are very low risk. Do you get what I'm saying? It's a stalling position by that definition. You are limiting the options of the other player while keeping yours reasonable. But you're also kind of limiting, you think about what closed guard does, it limits your movement too, right? It kind of limits how dynamic you can be with your legs. Obviously, you use your legs a lot in closed guard, but it does limit the amount of angles that you can create, how quickly you can create angles versus a spider guard or something like that with the person at the end of your feet. But that is just, that's really what I want you guys to take away, is that this is just a mindset of understanding how to win in competition. Yeah, we're talking about stalling, but we're really just highlighting that it's just a part that you're constantly seeing. And the more you can understand it, the more you can set up your training to train you for it. And so I just think, to reiterate, in competition, you don't get more matches in a tournament. You don't get more matches by going for the sub and then losing. You get more matches by winning. No matter how you win, you get more matches by winning. It's just like in the tournament setting, I go to the next round by advancing. If I won by because the other person had a stalling call against them and that was the only score. But I did enough to not get a stalling call. I guess I win, don't I? I guess I get to fight in the next round. I have a chance to submit that next guy, right? And then if I do it again, I have a chance to submit the next guy. But the idea that, well, I'm in mount with 3 minutes left, I'm just going to go for an armbar right here because I heard that you should always be chasing the submission. That's not what that means. I'm not saying you're even wrong by always chasing the submission. You should always be advancing position. That's just good jiu-jitsu. That's just overwhelming your opponent. You should always do that and then be efficient enough and in good enough shape to be able to do it really well. But there is this idea, and during this I'll make sure to address this now because I'm sure the sub-only people are like, oh, well, this doesn't apply to submission only. Yes, this absolutely applies to submission only, even more so. Submission only is one move working per match. That's all that actually matters in submission only. If it's actually submission only. If it's submission only with decision, technically it's just points. It's just the points are imaginary. We don't actually tell you the points. And it's just kind of like, I don't know, whatever three dudes think. But yeah, there is no submission only is just like, how would I explain it? Like the idea is, if we take away points, there will be more submissions because the only option will be to submit somebody. Well, technically not. You technically just took all the options and then limited them to one, meaning you took all the defenses that we have to think about and then limited how many things we need to defend to one. All I have to do is defend submission. I can be in bottom side control. I can be in bottom side control for 5 minutes. I have a really good heel hook once I get out of here, but brother, what are you going to do about it? You can't tell me that's not stalling. It's part of the game, though. That is how games work. In sub-only, no time limit, the only real submission only. That is the only real submission only that exists. If there is a time limit, there can't be a decision. Then it's not submission only. You understand that, right? Like, this is how language works. You understand this, right? I just can't even, I'm sorry. I'm arguing too much. I'm being too aggressive. That's on me. I need to chill. But I think the example of this, and this is, I know people complained aggressively about this. This is not a complaint, what I'm about to say, but CJI, the recent one, is a perfect example of this. The idea that submission-only matches are going to produce a ton of exciting submissions, and it just didn't happen. And that is because athletes in any sport will always strategize to win, and that is what they're supposed to do. They're not, yes, to get to those stages, to get onto the place to perform, they've got to sell, right? And submissions are a great way to sell. But I'm sorry, it's just everything that we're doing here is just professional wrestling. You understand that, right? Like, it's just in these competitions that are interesting to watch, you watch them because why? Well, there's bad blood, like these guys hate each other, or there's money on the line, right? Like, these guys are going to fight to the death for this money, right? Or it's just there's clout on the line. And that is, then there's some storyline, there's some this one really matters. Trust me, everybody, this one really matters. And then you go and you have the match in whatever rule set. Think of it like this. The first part, what I just said, is all that pro wrestling, but you see that in UFC, you see that in boxing, you see that in, anything worth selling tickets to. You see that pre-little soap opera show, right? But then after that, and that's the same in all these things, right? We will deliver it different. We'll have different language, of course, but it's the same in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and all these things. You have these in chess, you have these rivalries that are interesting. But then you have to understand, after the rivalry, you want these people to fist fight to the death. But like, brother, they're playing chess. Let them go do their art against each other and just see who's better. And that's what we need to think about in the jiu-jitsu space, is it is a game. And so the idea that it has to be you submit somebody or not, it just does not make sense in the scheme of, hey, we're doing jiu-jitsu. Sometimes people are really good at not getting submitted. And so having points makes that really easy to define. Now, I don't just have to defend getting submitted. I have to defend bottom side control, or else I'm losing. I have to defend a takedown, or else I'm losing. So we think about the amount of unlimited options that we create by allowing points. And then you have to go into that mindset of, okay, well, how do we hack this system, right? And so let's go ahead and take a quick commercial break. Most jiu-jitsu gear feels like it was designed by someone who's never trained. And it smells like it was designed by someone who's never showered. That's why I use Datsusara. My gi, my backpack, my fanny pack, they are all made from hemp. It's ridiculously comfortable, it lasts forever, and it doesn't hold on to the stink of regret from last night's no-gi class. Even better, the gi is weirdly hard to grip. It's kind of like you're grappling while covered in butter. Don't ask me how I know what it feels like to grapple in butter. Instead, go to dsgear.com and use promo code ISUCK for 10% off. And you'll stop wearing gear that feels like a sweaty, stinky duffel bag and start wearing the coolest gear in jiu-jitsu. Check them out at dsgear.com. Let's be honest. Jiu-jitsu people are absolutely gross. We're rolling through sweat, blood, and whatever weird neck fungus that Jimmy brought back from vacation in Mexico. And if your gym doesn't have showers, you're basically marinating in all of that on your way home. That's why I use Full Guard from Sports Hygiene. It's a skin spray that kills staph, ringworm, and all the other gym gremlins on contact. No alcohol, no burn, and it's good for your skin biome. Full guard is powered by hypochlorous acid. Kind of sounds like something from a comic book, but it's literally the molecule that your body makes to fight infection. Full guard just found a way to weaponize it to go to war with these gross skin infections. So you can spray before class, spray after class. You can even spray your training partner during class if he smells a bit sus. Go to sportshygiene.com to grab a bottle. Jiu-Jitsu is dirty. Stay clean. And we are back. So let's start to dig into strategies that look like stalling, but absolutely aren't. They are just understanding that there is a limited amount of time. There is a limited amount of moves you can hit realistically on somebody, at least somebody who's skilled. And you have a limited amount of energy. And so the first thing that we should kind of think about in that kind of rule of, well, if you were a guard player, well, how important is guard retention? How important is not the 4 minutes of the match where you are in guard, not letting the guy score and pass? Well, it's incredibly important, because if you lose at any part for any 5-second exchange, you can lose 3 points. And then you're down, and not only do you have to sweep, but then you have to sweep and pass, right? You're down 3 points. A sweep is only 2. And so, or you have to sweep some out. And so either way, you kind of have to look in terms of, if I'm this guard player that has more options and the score is 0-0, technically in the zero-sum game of jiu-jitsu, I'm winning in this rule set. And so that is a mindset that seems like stalling, but think about the other person's perspective. Think about when this has happened to you when you're on top. You get put in close guard and nothing's happening. And the ref is looking at both of you, but you're only really thinking, man, everyone's looking at me. This guy's going for cross collar chokes. This guy's going for wrist locks. He's going for Kimuras. He's not hitting it, but he's going for stuff. I'm just down here hunkering down. I'm not doing anything. So what do? Well, there's 2 minutes left. I got to score. You start to take bigger risks. Your elbows start to get a little less tight so you can get a little more posture, right? Your base starts to shrink so you can maybe turn and try to open the legs a little bit. You start to reach in weird places with your hands where you start to set up yourself, maybe getting triangled. And so you look at that mindset that happens on top. It happens to all of us when we're in competition. We get frustrated and we go, nothing is happening. Let's make it happen. But the other side of it is the close guard guy is going, I'm attacking. And it's no risk though. And so the mindset is different. The mindset is, I know how this game works and I'm trying to win this game. I started with American Jiu-Jitsu black belt, Josh McKinney, just to piggyback off of last week. If you didn't listen to last week's episode, you obviously should check it out. We really went wild on that one. But something about this idea I really didn't get until I got more time training with Brazilian people. And obviously I competed coming up. The more you compete, the higher the level you get to, the more Brazilian people it is, per capita it is. And so I kind of started to see it in competition, but I more started to understand it when I would get to train with them and I would go, oh, this is how these guys train too. I remember just seeing things that, like, in training, they were trying to win. They would fall off of the mat right at the perfect time when I started to get ahead, and then retie their pants for a second, retie their belt. And I would be like, oh man, I'm tired too. I'm going to retie mine. I'm like, wait a second. I was just about to, and then they would stand up and start standing. I'm like, well, I guess that is the rule. We went out of bounds and the position wasn't secure. I guess you got me. And I started to understand in competition, see those little things happen. And I would go, oh, they practice that. That's not just something that they do on the fly. They think in these terms. And that allows them to win more matches. And you have to think in terms. this could allow you to win more matches, win matches against people who on paper are better than you. But you limit the amount of things that they're good at, you limit their moves, and you use your one thing at the right time, and you win the match. And so another way of looking at this, and again, this is this idea of most of the time where people would think of themselves as stalling is simply just a lack of knowledge. It isn't stalling. It's just that they have run out of, like we said, we have limited resources, and knowledge is one of those things. So let's say you get to mount, and you did all the right things to get to mount. You don't play mount a lot, but it's 4 points. Why aren't you going to take it, right? And so now you're up by a bunch of points. You're up 7-0, and you see an armbar. There's 3 minutes left, and you go, "Ooh, I'm just going to jump on that armbar right now." And so you do, right? Because jumping on that armbar represents the winning move, right? It represents 100% better of a position, right? You couldn't get better than finishing, than tapping out the person in that situation, right? But then you missed the armbar. Oh my gosh, you missed it. You're only up 7, kind of in a scramble. You're in bottom side control. Okay, we're still up 7, but you're in bottom side control. Do you have many moves that get you out of there? Not only that, but if you're in bottom side control up 7, you're stalling, right? You're not going, "Oh, I only care about the finish. Go ahead, get to mount and try to finish me." It wouldn't make sense, right? Because what if they take your back then? Now you're down 8-7. And so the idea that it's all about submission, always go for submission. No, that's wrong. You always advance position, because mount, a lot of you heard mount and you go, "Well, you can't advance mount." What is he talking about? That's what I mean about lack of knowledge. We're mount with no underhooks, brother. No head control. Okay, give me an underhook. One real underhook. Mount feels a lot tighter, feels a lot better. It's 5% better, it's 10% better. My chances of getting a submission from here actually go up. And I know you're like, "Oh, but what if I don't know anything from there?" It doesn't matter. You always are continuing to gain more of a percent, because you go one underhook. Well, what about underhook and head control? Way better, right? Chest on face, 5% better. Knees off the floor, weight on face, 5% better. Right? And so then you go, "Well, what's better than that?" Well, look, dude, this guy is getting his face crushed. He is in this. He's been letting me get 5% better, 5% better. Now he's got to do something stupid. He reaches his free arm, the only arm with any chance to do anything, to save his head and arm that is trapped. And what do? Well, you catch the other underhook. And now we have all those things, face smash, all of these things with double underhooks from mount. Just think about let's just visualize that position in our head for 1 second. Just like our worst enemy, and they just made that mistake, and we get double underhooks from mount because we were thinking in the mindset in this competition of get 5% better. Don't go for 100% if it risks you losing the match. It doesn't make sense. Low risk, limit their options, but advance position. And so it's just like, again, stalling, like I said, stalling is just part of any sport that defines a game with a clock. So, for instance, I always give the NFL references during NFL season, but it's NFL season, brother. What am I going to do? And so you watch a game and you get mad at the end. You're like, "Oh, man, they're kneeing the ball down, because to run the clock out at the end of the game, I can't believe they would do that and not go for a touchdown." No, nobody says that. You go, they're going to win the game. They did everything that was required of them to win the game already. And now they have the ball and they get to do what now is, instead you don't think of as kneeling the ball down. It's victory formation. You get to do this because you won the game in a way that meant we have control of the time at the end, and we've won by enough points that we have to take no risks. We have limited your options, and we win this game. And it's simple enough to understand in that sport that makes people go, well, yeah, it doesn't make sense to, throw the ball there, to go for a touchdown there. Why? So you can win by more? No, it doesn't make sense. Winning's winning. And so I just think that you can't understand this. Okay, so I've backtracked a little bit on something. No, I wouldn't say recently, just more and more, because I see how it can confuse people in a really important understanding part of jiu-jitsu. So this idea of that there are no techniques, or the word technique, not really using that very often. I use that word. I don't know if you guys have noticed in the podcast, but I use that word again. And the reason is because, one, you really do, I think, develop your own techniques. I don't think you learn a technique per se, from somebody. I don't think you show me and then it's just my technique. But I think you get really good and you refine a technique to be your own. You get the timing of it and it fits into your game. And it is this repeatable process in your game. And I think technique is a great word for it. And the real reason, though, that I started to use that technique phrase again, or word again, is because I just notice how much people struggle to understand the idea of exchanges, whether they're in a round of jiu-jitsu or whether they're in a tournament. And so you think of an exchange as like something happens, right? Someone goes for something in a jiu-jitsu match, and then it either is defended, it either just doesn't work at all, it is defended, or it is countered, right? Or it works. And so those are the ways that, your move will work. That's an exchange. How does it work? You go for a knee cut, you run into my knee shield, we fight there for a little bit because we haven't watched the chest over chest guard passing thing that's free on YouTube, on the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show's YouTube channel. And so we end up stuck at the wrong distance. Bottom foot eventually comes out. You kick me away. I'm going to probably go for a knee cut again, but that was an exchange, right? That took 10 seconds, maybe 15, maybe 20. So exchanges can take different amounts of time, but it is pretty much I go for something and then an exchange starts. You go for something, an exchange starts, and then we see who comes out as the victor. Do we end up back to the exact same position? Do we end up with you in advantage now? Do we end up at me in an advantage now, right? And so this idea of exchanges, the reason I think it's important to think this way is because if they are in 10 to 30 second increments, that means in a 5-minute match, there aren't a whole lot of exchanges that can happen, right? Let's say they're 20-second increments. So that means there would be 15 total exchanges. You could attempt 15 moves in a 5-minute match, theoretically. And that's saying that your opponent attempted none, right? Maybe you attempt 8 and they attempt 7. But then it's about who successfully wins those exchanges. And so the idea is just like knowing that. Have you ever finished a roll and thought, what was I even doing out there? Same. We have all felt that way. And that is why you need Jiu-Jitsu for Imbeciles, a free course from Rob Bernacki that explains Jiu-Jitsu so clearly, it makes you wonder how you ever got confused in the first place. I am telling you, it is like a TED Talk for people who suck at Jiu-Jitsu. And that is why they're giving it totally free to I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu Show listeners. So go to bjmentalmodels.com/ISuck and download it for free right now before you throw away another roll chasing guillotines from bottom side control. I am a man betrayed by the art that he loves. My name's Josh McKinney, and as most of you know, I've been cursed with the burden of fixing jiu-jitsu. with your help, we're going to heel hook the fake black belts, every single one of them. Those mat bullies that you're dealing with, we're going to pressure tap them. And Reddit BJJ, we're burning it to the ground unless they allow me to post my podcast episodes and quit deleting them. But I can't do this alone. Every like, every comment, every 5-star review, it fuels the mission, it powers the algorithm, and honestly, it keeps me from turning to the dark side and opening a karate school in a strip mall between a CBD store and Spencer's Gifts. So if you believe in better jiu-jitsu, review the podcast, do it for the future, do it for the children, but most importantly, do it so you never have to hear someone say "os" ever again. So I said jiu-jitsu is a zero-sum game earlier, right? And so that idea is if it's good for me, it's bad for you. If you're my opponent, if it's good for me, it's bad for you. If it's good for you, it's bad for me. There is nothing that is good for you that isn't bad for me. If it was good for you, it has to be bad for me, right? Because I have lost something that I had, or you have gained something I should not have let you gain, right? And so, we should not be thinking in terms as competitors, especially. And the less time, the more you have to think in higher risk moves. The more time, the more you should be thinking in low risk moves, because 5% better for you is also 5% worse for your opponent. And if they just accept that exchange, take that exchange over and over and over and over and over and over again. I'm going to give a shout out and then bash someone in the same paragraph. So people know the most famous character on the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show that's never been on the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show is my purple belt Jeff. And so if you don't know why, you have to watch the Jiu-Jitsu games on our YouTube channel. I mean, you'll know why in 3 minutes, but you'll watch that whole hour and really dig into why Jeff is the ultimate villain on the show. And, for everybody, people will come on the podcast, black belts will come on the podcast and be like, some little 102-pound purple belt was ripping my legs off in training. So that is who this kid is. And so the other day, me and him always will go on Wednesday nights. And that's one of our main times of going. And so, we do positional spars on Wednesday nights, and we always will end up doing bad positions. And Jeff, he understands something that's really important. You got to play the games. And so we hadn't done any rounds yet. I don't remember what the position, like the main positional spar we did, but then we start to do bad positions. I say, okay, guys, we're going to do top. Okay, guys, right? Because I'm a jiu-jitsu coach. I have to start with that. We're going to do 3 minutes top, 3 minutes bottom of side control with the same partner. So you're doing 6-minute round, start on bottom from side control. You go for 3 minutes. Wherever the round goes, it goes. But you start there. And then after the 3 minutes, you switch top to bottom. The other person gets top side control. And so Jeff calls me out there. He's sharp, right? He knows, man, the times I call Josh out for mount in this or the back in this, he'll just hold me when he gets a dominant position and squeeze me to death. But side control, he's like, I think I have a chance of getting out of side control. And I know that that's why he calls me out for side control. And so we do our round. I start on top first. He eventually gets out, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to start trying to pass. He's playing a little bit differently than he has been lately. And I'm like, crap. I can't pass this little kid. I can't pass this little troll. And the round ends. So then he gets on top. And so he claims, in the retelling of the story, he claims that I just one-handed grabbed him and threw him to the mat or something. I think I really smoothly technically swept him. I don't remember. I do remember there was a point that there was 2 more inches I needed him to go. My sweep wasn't working. And then I used dad strength on him. But that's on him. And so remember, we have limited resources, and I just had a lot more of that resource than he did. And so from there, I get on top. I get on top really quickly. So now I have 2.5 minutes to pass his guard. And I know I know I just scored a sweep, but he and I both know the game that we're actually playing is if there's ever a day that I don't pass his guard, he wins, right? Like that's a win for him. And so I'm trying everything. I'm hitting him with the best stuff. I'm melting through everything. This kid, he's defending it. I'm almost a little proud through my anger, right? I'm not, but I'm almost a little proud through my anger. And so I start to, I get to the end and like, there are a few times I was close, but honestly, I felt like I was going hard to even get close. And I was like, he had me today. I was like, there's just no way I was going to beat that. And so, of course, I thought about it a lot. And so on Saturday, we went again. So that was Wednesday. Saturday, we go again. And of course, I'm looking for old boy. You know, I'm eyeing old purple belt across the room. Old 20-year-old purple belt across the room. I'm like, yeah, I'm taking this kid's head off today. And so, and he knows that we're going. He's ready. He's been talking trash. He thinks he's going to stop me from passing him ever again, and that the pendulum has finally shifted. I'm in terms of like, man, I'm I can't ever let this kid beat me, right? You guys have met him. He's too much of a villain for the team. I got to keep beating him. And so I play top again. Similar passing position as last time. And the time on Wednesday, I had went from, I won't even explain the positions, but I'll just explain them like this. I had went from a pretty good position, a position that on basically everybody else that I go with that isn't used to my game, puts me to my next spot that usually wins me the guard pass. And he knows that. He knows when to fight me in certain positions, when to fight really hard in certain positions. But from there, I kept taking the risk of, well, this works. I'm just going to go now. And I'm going to make this happen. And then he would counter and we just get distance. We get away. And that was what kept happening. So this time, instead, changed the mindset back to, well, 5% better. And so that position turned into, and this really is still, everything that I'm talking about really is in the chest over chest instructional or seminar that I posted on YouTube. But it's just winning the position more and more. It started to turn into a little more head control, and then a little more underhooks, and then a little more underhooks, a little closer, a little tighter. And then he took the risk. And it went from me taking the risk to him taking the risk. But you think in these terms. Let's say that the ticker was at 50-50 when I was first in that position. And so if he took the risk, there's a 50-50 shot that he wins. But now let's say he lets me pull myself a little closer. Well, now the ticker's at like 60-40. So if he goes now, it's way more risky. A little more risky. But then I start to win an underhook. He doesn't want that. This isn't good. Now it's 70-30. He's starting to panic. He's starting to reach at the stance. He's trying to fight back that 10%, but he's realizing, I can't win anything back. I can't win back. I need to take my risk at some point. While he's thinking that, I'm trying to win that 20%. I'm trying to go from 30% to 20%. I'm trying to really, really take all of his ability, all of his movement away at this point. And then he goes for his risk, and guess what happens? He's too far behind, and I get to my next position. And then for the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners, I beat that child again. I shouldn't use that language. He's not a child. He's 20. He's an adult. But again, watch. I'm telling you, watch the Jiu-Jitsu games. You'll understand what I mean. Evil person. I'll make sure to link it in the description of this episode. Worst person ever. So let's look at how to stall. And what does that look like in a tournament? What does that look like in practice? Okay. So in a tournament, really, it should be a button that a coach can push. Whether that means you guys have a certain language around it. Hey, we're ahead on points by a lot, Greg. Think about that because we have more matches later. You hear coaches saying that. They don't have a great language for stalling. Worst thing you can do as a coach is use that word, is say stall. I was joking with the thumbnail of this, with the don't tell anybody. Please share this episode just like all the episodes. But the worst thing that you can do is say, you're up, stall, or especially if it's tied, if it's going to be a ref's decision and you think, like, there's 20 seconds left and you advise stalling. You just don't advise that. And the reason is because refs, it's like if they hear that word, the clock starts or a penalty starts or worse, right? And so you really have to think in terms of having the right language built around, having a code word built around when an athlete should stall, and then you only use it at the right time, or even having code words around pacing in general makes a lot of sense. I won't tell you what we do, but it does make a lot of sense. And if I were you, I would do it too. But I think that we also don't just have that. It's not just using it in competition. I can't just tell a student who's never learned the dark art of stalling, hey, stall, Greg. He doesn't know what that means. And so we have to, in our training, we have to practice the dark art of stalling, and we have to practice against it. An example of this is simple, is just a positional spar of smashed half guard. Top guy's up by 1 point, 2 minutes left on the clock. Go. Super simple. Smash half guard, top guy's up by a point. He gets to stall. That's his job for 2 minutes. So now the bottom person in training gets the realistic tournament feel, because most of us won't do that in training. We'll go, well, we're supposed to be advancing position, which is true. For skill development, advancing position makes more sense. If you always stop the position, you're getting less reps. Even if you're failing, you're still getting more reps, right? And then you start to get more chances to not fail. And so the idea of that smash half guard is we create a scenario that is, obviously it's pretend. It's, a scenario in our gym that we're saying, like, we're gonna all make believe that this is a tournament and that there are points, but it really does work because points are actually make believe. They actually don't exist. And so the idea is just like, top guy would stall in that situation. In every real scenario, he has so much control. Why should he take risk? If he takes his weight off, that's when all the half guard stuff works. Why take his weight off? It's not his job to. It's the bottom person's job to. The bottom person should have not let this happen. And so that's kind of the idea here, is that you do stuff early enough and you don't have to do stuff later. That's how competition works. And we need to train against people that have that mindset. And the only way to do that is to, in the gym, train that mindset. And so doing certain scenarios, not just positional spars, but scenarios. Hey, we're going to pretend this is happening in the tournament. So now we both have a goal. Bottom person has to score. Maybe you actually put the top person up even more points. Maybe you later in the night show how different it is, and you put the bottom person up by a point or up by 2 points and in smash half guard. And notice how much the bottom person's technique changes, right? Their technique changes. It's not their technique, it's their strategy. We have to, when we talked about the unlimited amount of options, the deeper into the match it goes, the more the options start to limit. Where do we have the most unlimited amount of options? Was the start of the match from the feet. But it starts to limit the more we get down on points, because what can we do that actually matters, that can actually win us the match? Sometimes you get so far down in a match, the only move is a submission. And so instead of, I know we're using the word stalling, And that's the word I've been pushing. But when you're hearing that term, I don't think you should be thinking of it as this evil, bad word. I think you should be thinking of stalling as what is the easiest way that I can limit the most jiu-jitsu from happening. Because there are times in competition that makes sense. If I am letting the person have unlimited options, then I am having to defend unlimited things. When we use that closed guard example, well, now they have like one option. So I really only have to be aware of and defend like one thing. And that is so much more frustrating. So that is the idea is, can I make this happen? When it happens to me, can I gain my options back? Or can I say, well, I'm just going to make this one option that I have work, right? And so sometimes, honestly, in competition, limiting isn't even the right word. Like, limit the amount of options that they have. I think that we think that's probably like more of a things are even or we're ahead. I'm trying to limit the amount of options. But sometimes we're ahead on the scoreboard, but we didn't utilize our energy very well. We get tired, get a little gassed, cut a little too much weight, and then the language changes to minimizing damage. So I have a crazy story we'll tell you next week. Bryce and I have a Halloween special for you guys that is so good. You guys will really, really like this one. It is the funniest and scariest episode that we've ever done. It is a true Halloween special. You guys are really going to love it. But in the thought of minimizing damage, I do tell this story, so I won't tell too much of it. But basically, there is this tournament that I did a few years back. I broke a few of the 10 commandments in order to make weight. And I ended up having some instant karma. I ended up actually getting concussed in the match. And so the perspective I'm going to share with you is what I remember. But the idea and the thing that happened in the match, this guy obviously came out hard enough to headbutt me and concuss me 3 seconds in, which was a wild move. And so what ended up happening is I get down on points after that too. I don't realize that I'm concussed. My guy that's going to be coaching me, my now black belt Richie, is competing literally the exact same time as I am. So I was supposed to be coaching him and me. Neither of it's happening. His match gets done. He runs over, starts coaching me. But he doesn't realize that I'm concussed. He knows that more of the story. And so I, again, don't want to ruin this story for you guys. But the idea is I'm getting thrashed by this guy. But in my concussed brain, I remember one thought of, there is no way this guy can go this hard in a 10-minute match. So as long as I don't get submitted, I'm going to come back. And so I think he was up. I know he swept me twice. And boys, I almost never get swept. And so I was like, man, this is something weird is going on. But I ended up getting swept twice. I think I'm about to get past. And we have an exchange. I end up on top, and I think I'm still down 4. And I remember in that moment, and this is again having a good coach there to know when to stall and when not to. I remember getting up in an exchange by a ton of points, like one exchange, like guard pass to mount to back take, something like that, or 2 guard pass or something. Just something that was very, very clear amount of points ahead. But I am concussed in this match. I do not know it, but I am really messed up, and I just can't function anymore. And my mindset goes to just minimize damage. And I basically play turtle guard, don't get scored on, but I knew that I could have even got both of his hooks in, and it would have been fine. I'm like, as long as I don't get submitted, it's no big deal. And I knew both hooks I was up by enough points that it didn't matter. And so, I was able to win that on the thought of, one, knowing pacing, but 2, just being able to minimize damage. It was so funny. I was doing so good at turtle. He actually fell off at one point and swept himself. And then I got the smashed half, which again, we practice that game at our gym. How do you get to smash half when you're up and win the match? And that is kind of the thought. But again, next week's episode, Halloween special, I think it comes out, I guess it would be the 30th. Yeah, you guys will love it. You're going to hear the ghost. Oh my gosh. You're going to hear the ghost of the 10-year white belt so much. Bryce's wildest story ever. So many good things on that one. But also, if you're interested in these training methods and all this stuff that I am talking about and how to implement them in your training schedule, download my free handbook, The Competitor's Journey. That's at simplifyingjujitsu.com/comp. And you will learn how to, hey, it's in the idea of a 6-week program, but really you could apply these ideas to your training all the time forever. And it would just help you get better faster at jiu-jitsu in the sense of being a better competitor, because you'll know when you should play these performance-based games or when you should get better at jiu-jitsu games, right? Because winning doesn't always get you better, right? Sometimes you need to actually be directly focused on getting better to get better. And so let's talk now just one more thing. I know I've went super deep into this, and I know we're already past my normal time I would end the episode, but I think that I wanted to finish on this because this is all we talked about today. I used different language, but we really all we talked about was to learn to control pace. That is, as much as our job in jiu-jitsu is to learn to control another human being, it is also to learn to control the pace of the match, and it's also to learn to control ourselves. That is the constant goal. If you get too focused on just controlling other people, but not the pace, you end up getting tired. You end up having 3 rounds in you and getting gassed, being able to go really hard, getting a couple subs, and then you're done. And then the rounds are over. And you're like, that's all I had, right? If you learn to control pace, you can roll forever. If you roll more rounds without getting injured, you're actually going to get better at jiu-jitsu because you're getting more reps. And so learning to control pace actually helps you get better at more reps of jiu-jitsu, helps you win more. Even for me now, I'm not as good as I once was when it comes to being in shape, especially being in shape all the time. But I can still show up to basically any training session and do an ungodly amount of rounds. I think we did like 30-something, 34, 30-something 5-minute rounds at our head nod Edwardsville HN3 opening that we did. That was earlier this year. And again, I wasn't in great shape, but one, I had to prove a point, right? First, I had to get the first pressure tap on those mats. And then from there, I had to, I was the first person on the mats. I had to be the last person on the mats. And there were people that were trying to beat me in that game. And so then what I eventually had to do was get rounds with them towards the end to control the pace and wear them out. And then they didn't have no more rounds left. And so, but it wasn't, again, a feat of, cardio, because I don't got that, right? If me and that group would have all went for a jog before practice instead, I would have probably fallen out in like the bottom 30%. I would have went down early, right? It's more of the ability, what you're trying to accomplish when you get good at jiu-jitsu. You're trying to get good at controlling people, controlling the pace of the match, controlling your own pace, how hard you have to go, controlling yourself. And it's just so important to remember that that's what we're trying to do. And so in that mindset of this is evil, you should always be going for submissions. Yes, I get it. I get why that's the language used, but that's at face value. It doesn't mean It doesn't make sense, right? There are times that going for a submission doesn't make sense. There are times that taking big risks doesn't make sense. And so you should always be looking to advance, but you should also understand that your job is to limit the amount of options that your opponent has, because it makes it so much easier to focus on the defense that you need to mount. And so the other thing to finish with is remember that strategy is the prioritization of limited resources against unlimited options. There are so many, and this can go so much further in the jiu-jitsu space when it comes to the amount of things you're going to try to master. There are so many things you could master, but one, there are so many things that you have knowledge to that's really in depth, right? And so that's a huge part of, you could only ask your coach a few things that they really, really understand deeply, right? And so there's only a few things you have knowledge to, but there are so many things you could try. You can I'll try to do Berimbolo, and then I'll try to do Baby Bolo, and then I'll try to do Reverse De La Hiva, and then I'll try to do Spider Guard, and then I'll try to do this. But the problem is you don't end up mastering any of those things because you get so obsessed with the unlimited amount of options. The best thing that you can do is say, hey, I have a limited amount of time to dedicate to this, and I have a limited amount of time that I will get to dedicate to this in the long run. And so why not focus my time? Why not focus my energy on getting good at these things that I think will help me in the long run? And how do you answer that? To me, it's things that work consistently and things that control the pace. If it allows your opponent, if the move that you're going for and the position that you're going for allows your opponent a ton of access to athleticism and a ton of movement, I don't like the position. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. You should be limiting the amount of options that your opponent has, so then you can focus on, well, how do I have an answer for the few options that they have now, right? And so this is understanding strategy, this is understanding pacing, and this is understanding how to suck less at competition. And so if any of these things make sense to you, if that understanding, and doing kind of deep dives on position makes sense to you, I have a course called Master Any Position in 6 weeks. It's a super long title, but it is exactly what it is. It is a concept that I actually came up with. I think it was like 9 years ago now, and it is just a methodology on using the end goal method to get really, really good at one thing, and then taking that one thing and then either deep diving even deeper on it, or how to then go on and find a new one thing to get good at and do it in a way that keeps you from becoming the victim of 1,000 moves. And so, again, I'll make sure to link that in the description. But besides that, thank you guys. If you are still listening to this podcast, I really do appreciate the amount of support. I said some absolutely outlandish things last week, and the amount of support that I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners, like, I really expected the hate that I got. And even from who I got it from and all of that, I expected that. And that was like, I was mentally prepared for that. But the amount of support, literally, one, it's not even close. The amount of support has overwhelmed the amount of hate. Keep in mind, this is the most disliked episode I ever put out before, the American Jiu-Jitsu episode. If you haven't listened to it, I am telling you, even if you're not sold on the American Jiu-Jitsu thing, if you think it's stupid, you think it's whatever, it's just going to explain to you what it is. A lot of people I see in comments, they have a thought of what it is. I don't think so. And I'm the one with a podcast who can shape the movement. And so I say what it is. But the amount of support from I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners has been insane. It has been I know for sure of 4 schools already, and I'm recording this 5 days after this episode has come out, 4 schools already that have told me that they are switching their terminology to American Jiu-Jitsu. And that is schools. This is not just people, right? I had a lot of individuals message me, and then I have seen some other schools already make the switch without telling me, which makes me super excited. If you do make the switch, I would love to know, and I would love to hear about how it's going. But besides that, I just really wanted to tell you guys, I ignore the negative stuff, and it really doesn't affect me or bother me. But I really do enjoy the positive stuff. It really does make a huge difference that there are people that have listened to me talk before we were in the studio, when we were in my my baby's room of my house, but you guys listen to me for such a long time and have been supportive. And then I did make a wild move last week and didn't say whether or not I was going to even be doing these type of episodes. Am I going to be doing deep dives? Am I going to be doing things like that? And I made sure to just put this thank you at the end, because I know only true I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show listeners ever get to the end of the episode. But I want you guys to know I really appreciate it, and it's awesome that you guys are on this journey with me, and we're gonna get this podcast and the brand and all this stuff to just be the best that it can be, and to be the most helpful that it can be to you guys in the jiu-jitsu community. There are a few ideas that are coming down the pipeline that, when I share them with you, are going to be so awesome, and you guys are going to be so excited. One of which is going to literally change jiu-jitsu, but not here yet. I just want you guys to know we're really working hard, and we really appreciate you guys. And God bless American Jiu-Jitsu. I hope you guys like this episode, and I hope that it helps you suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.